Ronan Cantwell bow. John O'Loughlin at 2. The South African Ehlers at 3. Howard Martin, former rugby player and very new to rowing, said he wanted to row at Cambridge, never thought he'd row for Cambridge. Stallard, one of the experienced men with West, the president at Stoke. Gideon Glassman at Cox. Andrew Dunn in the bow seat, one of their freshmen. The president, desperate to end this run, Nick Robinson at 2. Ben Burch, up from ISIS from last year in 3. The youngest on the river, Matthew Smith at 4. Daniel Snow, we saw quite a lot of him and heard a lot of him in our report prior to the race there. Lillesdahl, the Norwegian, and an American stroke in front of Kajasa, McLaren. Gideon Glassman still not happy. Now they're both happy.
Attention. Go.
And away we go. Nice, clean start with Oxford nearer the camera. Cambridge on the Surrey station. They won the toss and chose to go there, and all but one of their victories in this run of 7 have come from that station.
Oxford have gone off an incredible rate there. You can see it on the screen now, how many more strokes they're taking a minute than Cambridge. So long as they're efficient strokes and they're powerful strokes, that should make the boat go quicker.
And they believe that's crucial for them.
Yes, they do, but it's Cambridge who got the better, cleaner first stroke. I think that sitting for a long time on the state boat didn't help the tension levels, and I think Cambridge got away a bit more sweetly. Oxford will desperately want to get on terms here because they're racing now for the control of the first bend. So as we go through the first minute, this is the challenge that's set out for both crews.
Down Fulham Reach, past the clubhouses. And as ever, big crowds on what is a fairly grey and chilly afternoon, neck and neck as they come past the clubhouses.
See, well, both crews getting out to the full length they want to row. They slide a long way forwards, they get their bodies compressed, we can see that. They then want to put the blades in as far out as they can. It moves the boat a long way. See that from this shot here, both crews.
Warning going on here.
And both, now 3 calls to Cambridge.
I think the umpire's very keen to keep them well apart. They look quite safe at the moment. Cambridge at the moment underrating Oxford. Oxford desperately trying to make sure they go into this bend with a lead.
And I think the cry then was both crews move apart. I've always felt when that's said that neither responds. But they're both taking a good line at the moment. This Fulham football ground just coming up on their right. Looks as though they're going straight for the far bank, but the turning, setting your boat before the turn is crucial.
That's right. Oxford here are trying to go straight on to hold their line as far as possible. Cambridge are trying to take the bend as early as they can. The umpire's warning Cambridge, telling them not to come across in front of Oxford.
Cambridge being warned repetitively, but they're really fighting this out. Cambridge are determined not to leave any room on this corner for Oxford, because this is their chance to neutralise the bend.
This is up to, Oxford caught a little crab there. It's vital that Oxford hold an overlap with Cambridge so that Cambridge can't come across in front of them.
Catching a crab, losing the stroke.
They're very nearly interlocked still, and they're both Cambridge being warned again. Dangerously close. There could be a disaster here so easily.
The other thing about this period of the race is this is where the two crews should be settling down into the sort of pace they want to go over the whole course at. I talked about the long levers and the power of the Oxford boat. They've got to get into that rhythm now if they're going to make that power count. This crashing into each other, bashing around, doesn't help settle down, doesn't help relaxation.
They're at the bend, they're now coming up out of Fulham Reach in towards Crabtree Reach as they pass the Fulham football ground and come up to the mile post.
I think Oxford are putting a little push here. They put the rate up. That extra rate comes from an extra bit of power, which brings the blades through the water faster, brings the boat past the blades faster. Just taking a slight advantage there.
It certainly looks as if Oxford are fractionally up here, but it was a tremendous struggle during that minute and a half, and the question is what that's taken out of the two crews. They both look as if they've relaxed a bit now and come down into a more stable cruising rate.
And the Cambridge Cox simply shouting, press back, steady lads, calm down, trying to get a nice, comfortable rating from his crew.
Yeah, this is the period now, this sort of 3-minute period is where both crews should be at the sort of pace they're prepared to go for the next 8, 9, 10 minutes. And if they settle down at the same speed here, then we can expect to see them stay this sort of distance apart.
Now Oxford being warned as they try to pull across a little bit. The bend coming up, of course, will be to the advantage of Cambridge, and how Gideon Glassman sets the Cambridge boat to take advantage of that bend will be crucial for him. They're coming up alongside Harrods now.
And the Cambridge Cox is calling his crew through. He's trying to push them back on terms, because this is the last chance they've got before they come into the Surrey bend to make sure that they can get control of the Hammersmith turn. They're creeping back up. I think it's only now perhaps a canvas. They've come back about 2 men, and this is the moment when they've got to get back on terms with Oxford.
What Oxford are doing here, they're looking to get an advantage, to get up, because if they're ahead, it's very hard for the Cambridge Cox to push them wide. If Oxford are slightly ahead, when the Cambridge Cox steers, he steers into them.
It's one of the truisms of the boat race. If you can get your crew to put you in the driver's seat, being that little bit ahead, then you can control who goes where in this side-by-side contest coming round Hammersmith.
Now I think here the Oxford Cox should be leaning over. He should be right over on top of. She should be right over on top of Gideon.
I think certainly Cambridge are now back in contention on this bend, and as they come into the next minute or so, the bend will start to move in their favour. So we should expect to see Cambridge coming through onto top of Oxford. They're only about a canvas down. They're both going stroke for stroke, 36 strokes a minute, so that's right maximum cruise pace at the moment. They don't want to go any higher.
There's a push here from Cambridge. Dan Tweedie looking over. And they seem to be coming back a little bit.
We'll pick up the slight different styles, I think, when we come back. See Cambridge slightly more relaxed entry into the water, more relaxed faces. Oxford is a bit more aggressive, just getting on it.
Yeah, that'll be the big test after the bridge, where the technique may become very important. We'll see how the Oxford Stern 4, with their power, actually use it in the second half of the race.
Lots of noise from the banks for both crews.
Cambridge are making a push now. They're coming through. Cambridge are making an effort to come in onto the bridge. It's Cambridge push now.
It's a cracking race.
Cambridge through at 37. Oxford are defending it.
They're going to be like this for a while now, I think, because Oxford have got enough that they should be able to defend this bend. Although it looks harder work in the Oxford boat, they are moving the boat for that power. Sometimes we see tension and we see aggression, but doesn't actually move the boat. What Oxford are doing is effectively moving that boat along.
And the difference from last year is that both crews are rowing in the way that they would hope to do, which wasn't the case with Oxford last year. And this is a really tight bend here. Nothing in it, but the advantage
to Cambridge here, but they're pushing through. There was nearly another clash there. Cambridge are really going to try and make the best of this next turn. As they come under the bridge, they've got an opportunity to turn to the left and push Oxford over, and they've now come just past level. They've gained about a quarter of a length on the bridge there.
The Oxford Cox did very well there. I think she was warned to move apart, but she didn't go too far. Just moved back enough to satisfy the umpire. Didn't really lose too much by that. It's hard to pick this up on the shot we've got from this one, but they're actually going around a bend here, so we'd expect to see Cambridge creep slightly. It's a matter of minimising that creep.
And this bend really in 3 parts,
yes.
Chris.
We've seen the first major part. It's now rather flatter, and then they have a small advantage at the end of the long bend as well. And this is where we'll have to see the real test of the rhythms. If Cambridge rhythm is as good as they hope it is, they will start to creep away as they come around this second part of the bend and into the middle part of the race. The question is whether Oxford can keep that. You can see that rather more distinctive marked catch from the Oxford crew.
And you saw from the graphic that Oxford in the lead at both the milepost and at Hammersmith, just for the record, but they are side by side going down Chiswick Reach.
This is a sort of period where a lot of these people now will be in an area they've never been before. Most of our racing is 2,000 metres, 6 or 7 minutes. This 18-minute race, 17-minute race is not something we do a lot of. The boat race is unique in that. And this is they'll be starting to enter sort of unknown territory here for all of them. They'll be finding out things about themselves they don't know.
And they're only around 2.5 miles completed of a 4-mile, 374 yards course.
They're about coming up to halfway now. This is about the halfway mark, and Cambridge have got perhaps a quarter of a length now, but they need to try and make more of this, because the end of this bend, the end of the first half of the bend is now running out. You can see it now as it's coming down on the left-hand side. The river is straightening out, and both crews are actually well over to Surrey, which is to Oxford's advantage.
It's the water you can see, well, just about see there is chopping up a bit. It's much better from this shot. You can see the lines of the waves down the boat. This is the area where ISIS moved on a little bit against Goldie earlier. See if the same Same happens here. Sorry.
This, in terms of conditions, is the most difficult part of the course now.
It's actually getting quite rough now. You can see the water being picked up off the riggers. I think the water's got quite a lot rougher than the Isis Goldie race.
There'll be a decision here for the Coxes to make where they try and get in under the bank, get a bit of shelter. Oxford certainly think they're good at coping with the rough water, but this is choppy.
Well, let's get a view of how well Oxford are coping with the rough water from their former president, Matthew Pinson. Well, he's obviously speechless at the moment about what's going on. We didn't hear him, but Cambridge still with the slight advantage.
And they'll certainly be trying to push Oxford out into the roughest of the water. Where the tide is strongest, the water is likely to be roughest too. So they'll try and keep Oxford pushed well out, and so that they can slip away in the slightly calmer water. There we are looking at Oxford. You can see how their blades are catching a bit on the rough water. But Oxford are actually back in terms, I think. There's very little between them. Fractionally, Oxford ahead, maybe hardly anything in it. And they know now that there is not much more of the Surrey Bend to play for. This could be an opportunity for Oxford to squeeze by as they come towards the final turn, which will favour them.
That's right. This is, I think I've been once in a race side by side here. This is about 10 minutes gone. I seem to remember I wanted to give up rowing forever. So this is a test for them all here.
Yes, and our counting clock, 10.5 minutes of the race have elapsed.
This is all about trust and about giving what you've got for everyone else in the boat. All about desire, whether they want to, how much they want to win this race, really. This is not about technique or about rhythm.
This is about wanting to maintain the sequence. This is about wanting to end the sequence, and this is a tremendous battle for which they have prepared for 6 months. But none of them, even those perhaps who rowed previously, knew it was going to be quite as hard as this. What a contest.
You can see the whites of their faces now. They are deep in pain territory here. It must be really hurting here. The question is how good their discipline is, because they've got still some difficult water conditions to get through over the next minute or two. And you can see these faces, they're just deep in some concentration, trying to hold on. And now you can see the last of the Surrey Bend favouring Cambridge, but after that the river will start to swing around the other way, favouring Oxford in the last 3/4 of a mile of the race.
It's a big bend, that last one. If Oxford can stay in contact just literally the next minute or so, if they can not lose any more than they've lost here, then they've got a pretty good chance of moving on through Cambridge around the last bit of the bend.
Traditionally, the crew leading at Barnes, and Barnes is that bridge in the distance there, wins the boat race. This is demanding a great deal of Robin Williams' team.
Indeed.
Can they keep their length under this pressure, Chris?
It will be really difficult. They've got about 6.5, 7 minutes to go from here, and they will feel Oxford beginning to slip away towards that bend. They're going to have to respond, as they've been having to respond all the way through that rough water. So this is where it's going to get tough. But the rhythm's looking pretty ragged over there at Oxford. It's not looking wonderful on either side, so this is still anybody's race.
In fairness, very difficult conditions. Good battle again between the Coxes.
Very interesting. Cambridge look like they're dealing with the water a lot better. Their faces look relaxed, the blade work looks cleaner. But when we look at the actual boat speed, which eventually is what racing's about, Oxford are up there and they're going well.
And at this stage, Johnny, the extra weight of the Oxford boat, is that a help, the extra strength and power there, if they're getting it together enough?
It is a help, particularly in a headwind. If you're bigger, you're likely to be stronger, and the wind stops the boat.
A push from Oxford, I think.
And Cambridge, I think Cambridge are making what could be their last critical effort. They have got to get on terms here. They're making a big effort to get back on terms with Oxford here, to try and get more control of this bend. Oxford will be responding, because it's really important that they try and keep on terms. Still, it's only about a canvas to a 1/4 length maximum. Cambridge desperately trying to keep in here as they come onto the crown of this last bend.
Equal at Chiswick steps, but Oxford with the advantage a little further down in Corney Reach.
Oxford now. The question now for Oxford, on paper should win this race from here, but what we don't know is what people have put in the first 11 or 12 minutes to get this lead. Looks like they're taking on a lot of water. They may have water in the boat. That will obviously slow it down. The boat becomes heavier.
Look at Nick Robinson there, the president.
There's some very tired rowing going on there in the bow fore, and I think certainly in the Oxford boat. Now I'm assuming it's the same in Cambridge. Cambridge look to me to be dropping back a bit.
But it looks a calmer rhythm. The contrast is fascinating.
It's calmer, but if you don't get the power on at the beginning of the stroke, you don't move the boat. It's what you can get in behind the rigger. You mustn't check the boat, but those Oxford catches are still banging in, and that's Cambridge's problem. Cambridge have got to get on terms here.
What Oxford are doing and making sure they get 100% of their power onto the end of the handle and not necessarily worrying about whether it's as efficient as possible. Cambridge may only be getting 95% of the power on. It may be more efficient, but in raw terms, they're not doing so much to move the boat.
Shorter stroke, but more powerful in essence.
Yeah. The water's really flying around here. It's amazing how much it's deteriorated over the last half hour, typical of what the tideway can do, but there's no doubt that Oxford are making their way through it more efficiently. They're pushing away further. They've got the better part of a length, I think, now.
Those Oxford guys have been in a lot of pain, but they know now that it's a matter of hanging on for 2 or 3 minutes, and that'll give them a hell of a boost to know that if they can, it's 2 minutes to go and they've won the race, whereas Cambridge know they have to do something incredible to get back.
Under Barnes Bridge go Oxford, with the sight that their supporters have been waiting to see over the last 7 years when they've had to take second best. It's Oxford's race for the winning and only Oxford's race for the losing, it has to be said. To come from behind at Barnes has rarely been done. I think Chris Davidge from Oxford was the last to be successful, and that's a long time ago.
It has been.
Cambridge are pushing though.
They're certainly making a big effort to get on terms, but I think the critical part of the race was actually as they came onto this bend and Oxford managed to defend it and Cambridge couldn't get back. Cambridge are now steering an inside line. They're trying to just draw back every inch of advantage that they can to get back on terms, but they're going to have to find a great deal more if they're going to get back a length. It's a very, very long way to go in an 8 with only 2 minutes to go.
They just have to gamble on something like a bit of radical steering or just throw the rate out the window, go right up with the rate. But I think we saw there with the Oxford faces, they know that they should have this race won. They're starting to look a little more relaxed. As they get more relaxed, that power will be more efficiently applied. It's
a sight we always see from the leading crew once they've turned from Barnes Bridge. Going past the White Hart pub on the near side, one of the many on the route.
Well, it's certainly not beautiful, but it's effective. It's done their job.
It's about making the boat go as fast as you can for the distance required and being first over the finishing line.
Exactly. I know Oxford they were hoping in a way that it might be a bit choppy. I think the water would be a bit choppy. They thought that would suit their more aggressive style, and that was a critical sort of time of the race. As the water started to chop up, Oxford kept moving on.
And 3 seconds the difference between the two crews at Barnes Bridge, and that told the story. And I would think that Oxford may, in spite of one push by Cambridge, have gone further away.
I don't think Cambridge actually have got much hard left now. I think they fought really hard through that rough water, but they couldn't get it, couldn't back on terms. And I think it's around 2 1/4 lengths maybe. And there's only, well, relatively a minute and a half left of this race, so there's virtually no prospect, unfortunately, of them getting back on terms.
Suddenly the faces in the commentary box have changed between my two colleagues of recent years.
It's taken 5 years, I think, for them to change.
You have to remember how many years I spent with Oxford winning during the Topolsky era.
I'm trying to be as magnanimous in victory as you always were.
So that's Chiswick Bridge in the distance, which is past the finishing post. Ben Burch in the Oxford boat said he didn't want the race to end last year because he thought that ISIS might be able to catch Goldie. He'll want it to end now, and they've got 250 yards to go, about 40 seconds of rowing left before Oxford at last get the victory after 7 successes for Cambridge. They will put it up to 76 to 69. The sequence has come to an end as they come to the finishing post. Nick Robinson has proved to be the winning president for Oxford. The run has come to an end. Dan Snow said after the defeat last year, maybe you have to lose a race to know what it really means to get back and win. And Cambridge, after their years of success, this time have to give second best to the Dark Blues.
It's a fine and classic race, that. Fine and classic race, and well deserved by Oxford.
It was a wonderful race for so long, and the expressions on the faces of the Cambridge crew are faces that they haven't seen previously in the reign of Robin Williams and haven't seen for 7 years. And it's the Oxford crew. Nick Robinson coming down to say congratulations to everybody. The president, it's his last year. He saw others fail ahead of him. Charlie Humphreys last year, Andrew Lindsay before, Ed Bellamy, although he wasn't actually in the blue boat at the time. But he has turned it round, as he promised he would do. He changed a few things. He brought Derek Clark into the coaching team alongside Sean Bowden. And the ISIS boat, it's a double for Oxford. Success for both their crews.